We're now going to look at interrogatives, so asking questions in French. So how do you ask a question in French? There's 3 ways. The first one is by using intonation, by raising your voice at the end of the question. So we're going to take the question, or you have, we're going to ask that question. So, tu as, right? So using the intonation method, you'd simply raise your voice at the end of the sentence. Tu as, you have, as we would in English, you have. All right, so that's the first and I suppose the easiest way of asking a question in French. Simply raise the tone of your voice at the end of the sentence. The second one is by inversion. Okay, a bit like how Denzel Washington inverted his plane recently. We invert the verb. We basically turn it around. As-tu. So same, we do it in English as well. So you have becomes have you. A perfectly acceptable way to ask a question. The third way is using the est-ce que construction. Now this can be a little bit confusing for students at times, right? But it's actually sometimes the easiest, one of the easiest ways of doing it, right? Est-ce que, what does es mean firstly? Well, es is c'est inverted already. So, and c'est obviously is ce est, right? And ce est means, or c'est means it is. So, c'est que means it is that. It is that. So, est-ce que means is it that you have. Alright, so putting est-ce que before the you have makes it a question. So I suppose in English it would be like the way we say do. So do you have? Okay. Now on to that, we can elongate the question by adding, you know, the other question words such as, we use the blue marker here because it's a little bit, if I write something here, Mark, can we see it? Yeah. So pourquoi, everyone knows, means why. Comment means how. Combien means how many. Où means where. Quand means when. I'll remind me to say something about the pronunciation of that when it's followed by est-ce que in a minute, but I will. Qui means who, and que means what. So by adding any of these onto what we have here, we can elongate, we can make the question more specific. So you can just say, pourquoi as-tu? Why have you? Or pourquoi est-ce que tu as? Why have you? Combien as-tu? How many have you? Okay. Combien est-ce que tu as? How many have you? Combien tu as is perfectly acceptable as well. In fact, it's said very, very commonly by the French. Combien tu as? All right. Quand, right. When you're putting quand with est-ce que, the D is pronounced like a T. So that would actually sound like quand est-ce que je vais en ville? Quand est-ce que tu vas en ville? When are you going to town? When you're putting que, what, with any of these, so let's say if you're putting it with que, est-ce, the E is dropped, so you get qu'est-ce que tu as? Okay. You can't use que here, it just doesn't work. So what you would use instead is quoi at the end. Tu as quoi? So you either use que at the start or quoi at the end. They both mean what. You have what, okay. Qu'as-tu? All right. Qu'as-tu? Which I suppose the French might say qu'as-tu when they want to ask you, what's wrong with you? What do you have? Qu'as-tu? Qu'est-ce que tu as? What's wrong? Qu'est-ce que tu as? What do you have? What's wrong with you? Okay. So that's the 3 ways of asking a question in French. And it's sometimes, the easiest way sometimes is to use the est-ce que. Especially when, for example, if you wanted to use the inversion method and you had a negative reflexive verb in the passé composé with the pronoun un, you're not going to be able to do it that way. It's extremely, even the French can't do it that way. It gets really complicated. So est que, the est que construction is sometimes the best to use. Okay, so that's the interrogatives, the asking questions in French. I hope that's okay. And yeah, I remember, I'm just thinking, you know, and people were saying to me last week, Paul, you're rubbing this off the board very quickly. Press pause. Remember, this is a video that can be rewatched. Okay, so it is live now, but when it's in the archive section, remember, if you've paid to watch this one, you are automatically granted access to it in the archive.